Welcome to the Chemical Burrito YouTube channel. We're here with the Anbernic RG556 that I just got yesterday and spent a little time setting it up, and we're going to do some initial impressions and a little bit of PlayStation 2 gaming today. So let's get to it. So here's the handheld. It's all powered up. I did change the background. Didn't really do all that much. I downloaded a few games from the Play Store, like Baldur's Gate Dark Alliance, some of the Grand Theft Auto games, some of my Android games. These emulators were all pre-installed by Anbernic, so one of the nice things about this particular handheld and the other Anbernics, if you're new to emulation, you can buy one of these Anbernics and they pretty much have all of the emulators you're going to need already set up. Now, you probably, if you're a little bit more advanced user, want to change out some of these versions that Anbernic has provided for more up-to-date stuff. But for today, and I'll probably do that myself later on, but for today, we're just going to use what came on the handheld. I didn't even need to download anything emulation related. I just copied a couple of my games onto the memory card, and it was ready to go. I didn't really order a memory card, but they sent one in my box. So what I did with that was, it was a no-name memory card. I just copied the stuff off of that to a nicer SanDisk card, put that in the bottom here, and basically after that it was ready to play games. So what we've got here is, I'm using the basic Android interface, but if you hit this little Anbernic button over here, what will happen is it will bring up the Anbernic front end where you can scroll through the different systems that they've selected on here. And didn't actually mean to do that. But I don't usually use this front end. About the only thing I use that front end for is just RetroArch games. So I'll get out of it. Go back to Android. I use Android because I'm used to these things as Android tablets, basically, which is what they are. They just have game pads on them. So the front end basically was entirely set up for RetroArch, which is convenient if you want to do a lot of older system gaming like Super Nintendo, Nintendo Entertainment System, Sega Genesis, TurboGrafx, and so forth. Mainly because RetroArch is something of a pain to set up if you have to do it on your own. It's all set up here for you, but I didn't really get this particular handheld for games that are that old. I got it for PlayStation, PlayStation 2, PlayStation Portable. Those are kind of my favorite systems. And for most of those, we just use the dedicated emulators. Aether SX2, the PPS SPP for the PlayStation. We have Redream for the Dreamcast, and DuckStation's what I usually use for regular old PlayStation. But just some general impressions about the device. You know, for a beginner, it'd be very easy to set up. For an advanced person, you'll probably want to make more tweaks than I've done so far. I've messed around with the controls some. The controls generally feel good, although there is a rough spot right here on this D-pad, which is probably just a molding issue. So, you know, there may be some fit and finish issues with this handheld because it's one of the relatively inexpensive ones. However, one thing I should mention, first impression I got out of this is the screen is absolutely gorgeous. This is certainly the best screen that you can get on an emulation handheld that costs less than $200. And you know, it looks great. It's 1080p OLED screen, brilliant colors, deep blacks. Basically, if this handheld were a little bit more powerful, it would almost be you know, the best you could buy. But it's an inexpensive one, so they've essentially skimped on the processor. So it's not going to dethrone the Odin 2 for emulation quality, but it is very nice to look at. Now, a couple of other impressions. The joysticks, I have been playing around with those. I have the gamepad tester program up here, and some reviewers have said that they noticed that the sticks tended to be, you know, kind of focused more in the main four directions. I see a little bit of that when I was playing with it with the gamepad tester. But to be perfectly honest, during gameplay, I didn't really notice it at all. I loaded up Colony Wars on the PlayStation, was able to pilot my ship just as if I was using a DualShock on a regular PlayStation. I didn't notice any real control issues there. The rear triggers are analog. You can't see it right now, but one quirk you might want to be aware of is if you have the system in Nintendo control style, which is right here, it says NS mode, you need to switch to Xbox mode if you want to use the triggers as analog. And in fact, unless there's a reason not to, I would just leave the handheld in Xbox mode. But then again, Xbox mode simulates PlayStation in the United States anyway, and I'm honestly not a big Nintendo fan, so I'm perfectly happy with that. But just be aware that to get the analog behavior for your triggers, you need to be in Xbox mode in the little pull down menu up at the top. So, one thing to be aware of if you're wondering, hey, why am I not getting pressure sensitivity with the triggers? Well, that would be why. Now, some other stuff on here. We, of course, have all the emulators. The Play Store is included, and I didn't have to do anything special to set up the Play Store. You just basically log in, and I was able to download the apps off the Play Store that I wanted. Apps for playing videos, some other stuff, YouTube, Gmail, that kind of thing I like to have on my Android handhelds. And as far as initial impressions, I really like this device so far. It has a good feel in the hands. Some things I noticed, the vibration feature works, but it feels really cheap, particularly after you've used something like a PlayStation 5 controller or a Steam Deck or a Nintendo Switch with the more advanced haptic feedback. Basically, the only vibration you get here is just kind of a cheap feeling buzzer, which is actually pretty common among these Android handhelds. Even the Odin feels cheap when it starts to vibrate. But other than that, control's pretty good. I would like a little bit better joysticks on this thing. I've gotten used to what there is on the Odin 2 and the Steam Deck, so this feels a little bit like a downgrade when you're using the sticks here. They're in good positions, but they're just not as high a quality sticks as you find on some of the other handhelds. So if I had to suggest ways for Anbernic to improve this device, two things I would say would be get some better joysticks on here and get a better processor, because as we'll see, this is not really a handheld that can give you, you might say, no compromises PlayStation 2 emulation, because it's just not quite strong enough. And of course, there's also the issue of the Android PS2 emulator not being developed anymore currently, so it's going to have some issues because of that. But that would be true for any handheld, and there's nothing Anbernic can really do about that. But they could provide a little bit stronger chip in this thing. Now, a couple other features of this handheld. It does have the audio out jack for your headphones. It does have a built-in fan. I've noticed that the fan is pretty quiet. I mean, I turn it on and I can hear it. I usually just leave it in auto mode, but it doesn't run obnoxiously loud all that much. So, not really bothered too much by fan noise, even if it's there. We've got volume controls on the top. We have our power button here. The only thing I don't like about that is the power button's close to the volume, so it's easy if you're not quite sure where you're pressing to hit the power button instead of the volume down button. I've done that once or twice. Probably do that less often the longer I have this thing, but something I noticed initially. We've got select and start buttons here. We have this button here that is currently programmed to bring up the front end that we saw a minute ago. We have a kind of home and back button, which in most of the emulators just takes you to the pause menu. And the sticks are clickable. This is basically has the basic features you'd expect. We do have speakers that are down here in the base. They're not quite as loud as you might like. I mean, when you get kind of spoiled by the top firing speakers of the of some of the more expensive handhelds. You can hear these, but for really quality sound, you're going to want to plug in the headphones. Now, one other thing. The case that comes with this handheld, I didn't actually buy the case that came with the handheld because I thought it looked kind of hideous. It's that old fake Gucci bag. What I did instead was I got this case, this Tomtoc case here from Amazon. I actually bought it for my Odin, but unfortunately, it's a nice case. It's actually meant for a Switch, but it is a little too tight-fitting for the Odin, but it is almost a perfect fit for the RG556. So this is going to be the case I'm going to be using for my RG556, rather than that kind of hideous-looking case that Anbernic is selling. I'll link this in the description, a non-affiliate link, so yeah, you can just go to Amazon and pick one up if you want to. The only issue I have with this case is it's a soft case, so it's not quite as protective as a dedicated hard case, but it does fit the RG556 really nicely, and it certainly looks a lot better than Anbernic's official case. I wish they had it some other color. It even has a zipper. You can put your charge cord in there, and it has a handle so you can carry it. It's a really nice case all around. If you've got an RG556 and kind of like me, you can't really stand that like fake Gucci thing that Anbernic is providing, this is a nice alternative. So, the handheld itself, it's going through the interface. It feels pretty snappy. Don't feel any real lag here. I did set this to, instead of having the navigation buttons at the bottom, I turned on gesture navigation because I'm used to that on all my other Android devices. And I don't really see any problems navigating through the interface. Like I said, it's fast. Not as fast as something like an Odin 2, but certainly is a step up over Anbernic's RG505 in terms of overall responsiveness. I've tried Android apps here. I've loaded up a couple of games. They run really well. I haven't downloaded Genshin Impact yet, which is what everybody seems to want to test. But the games I got, Baldur's Gate Dark Alliance, the Grand Theft Autos, they work great. I don't think Genshin will be a problem on this. But this should have enough horsepower to run most Android games without too much difficulty, as well as Android applications. And so far, I've had no problems with that. I did download VLC because watching videos is really nice on this little device. The screen, like I said, is beautiful. It is a great screen. Don't have any complaints about it. I actually have it on about half brightness right now for the camera, but gets plenty bright, looks good, and honestly, I wish if they'd put the processor that Retroid put in the RP4 Pro, this little thing would almost be perfect. Now, let's get to some gaming. Do a little game testing. So what we're going to do is we're going to load up some PlayStation 2. And we're going to see how that goes. Now, like I said, I don't usually use much in the way of front ends, so I put the I put the screen up there. I'm using the Anbernic's video out through USB-C, which so far has worked pretty nicely. Now, if the sound seems a little out of sync, I have not had a chance to test out this new capture card very much, so it might be slightly out of sync. Hopefully not, but we'll find out. So if the sound is a little bit out of sync, it's not the fault of the Anbernic, it's the fault of the capture card. Let's take a look. So we're going to start off PlayStation 2 emulator here. Got some of my games on here. Some of these are the ones that actually came with the Anbernic on its own card. I'm only going to play the ones that I've actually uploaded here. Figure we would look at Tales of the Abyss first. Tales of the Abyss is a nice role-playing game, 3D RPG. It's one of my favorite in the Tales series. Some people like it, some don't, but I really had a great time with this game when it came out on the PS2. So I've got the emulator pretty well at default settings right now. Let's load it up and see how we go here. Oh, I do have the widescreen patches enabled, I believe. So, yep, I got the widescreen patches enabled, so we just saw them turn on. So this game normally runs at 30 frames per second. Let me turn down the sound for the moment. So this game normally runs about 30 frames per second, and it's playing its intro video with no problem. Let's get into some gameplay. The scrolling down in that first scene actually looks about like that on original PlayStation 2. I have this thing, I believe, set, and let's find out real quick, for 2x upscaling. So this is running at 2x. Let's load up a little save file here. And run around a bit, and what we'll see is for Tales of the Abyss, it seems to run pretty well.
Hey,
Yeah? That was...
wait, what? Really?
What kind...
Cap-
You... Then...
Is this a capacity core?
Yes. You can think of it as an accept... Your body... These...
So if I...
I'm...
Oh,
But with...
how's it look?
It looks... And...
Let's go! No way! We're done here.
Oops, wrong way. So as you can see, Tales of the Abyss runs pretty well without any real major hiccups at 2x here. So, you should be able to play games like this without much difficulty. I've gotten a little ways into this and, haven't run into any issues so far. So let's back out of this and take a look at another game here. Let's look at Star Ocean Till the End of Time. This is one of my favorite game series. I love the Star Ocean series, and there's very mixed opinions on Star Ocean 3, but it's probably my second favorite of the whole series after Star Ocean 2. So this game is a little more difficult to run, and I'm using the European version here because that's where my save file that I've been testing these systems out with was. So as you can see, it is running more or less at 50 frames per second right now. But what we're going to do is we're going to load up a save, and what you'll probably notice is at default settings, unfortunately, since this handheld isn't quite as powerful as something like an Odin 2, we will probably have to do a little tweaking. So right now here in the room, it's running all right. We run out into the city of Aryglyph, and I've got the sound off right now, but we'll turn the sound on in a minute. But as you can see, it's running fine in the in the city here at 50 frames per second. One glitch that this particular game has on slightly less powerful devices is if you actually bring up the menu, you notice it's going to slow down and lag a bit. You can see that red number up there. One thing to do to fix that in Star Ocean 3, if you're trying to run it on this handheld and some of the other ones, is go into Settings and go to Graphics and go down to the texture preloading, change it from full to partial, and then that should fix any issues with lag in the menus. So now we're back up to 50 frames per second. That's just one quirk I've noticed with Star Ocean 3 in particular on these handhelds here, especially the ones that aren't quite as powerful. You don't have to do that tweak on the Odin, but on quite a few of the other ones you do. As you can see, this is running pretty smooth right now. We're going to go out into this area outside Aryglyph. This area has a lot of snow. You might notice there's a little slowdown here. And we're going to go into a battle. And we're going to see that there's probably going to be a little bit more slowdown here, and we'll see what we can do about it. So you notice it's kind of lagging now. So, which is not fun. We actually want this to run at full speed rather than kind of lagging out. So let's go into settings, and what I've done for this game, I still want to have it at 2x if I can. So I'm going to go down to hardware download mode and put it on unsynchronized. Usually that tends to help. As you can see, we've gotten most of our frame rate back here. It's going to give you a few graphical glitches when you go in and out of combat, but I think that's a small price to pay for having full frame rate while you're in combat. Let's see, maybe that didn't quite do it enough. Huh? So you notice the graphical glitches here, but for the most part, it is now running at speed in combat here, which is kind of what we wanted. I think if the small amount of lag out here in this snowy field and is having a little more trouble than some areas because of the snow. But if you want a little bit less lag, you can always do some underclocking. I'd rather not, because to me, doing underclocking on a lot of games, particularly this one, kind of makes the running around in the open areas feel a little bit, you might say, stuttery and unnatural. It does get it to run at the right frame rate, but I like to avoid the underclock if I possibly can. But as you can see, Star Ocean 3 here, with a little bit of tweaking, runs just fine. And this is at 2x upscaling, so it looks really nice as well. So I'm going to, of course, be doing a lot more PlayStation 2 testing later on, because PlayStation 2 is one primary reason I want this. I've already done a little bit of some of the games just for myself that are that I've got on the memory card right now. I can go ahead and tell you, you're not playing Champions of Norath on this thing. You know, the Odin 2 can barely play it, and it's still almost unplayable in some areas. This handheld doesn't even really make it past the first area without having to heavily tweak it, and you really wouldn't want to play, say, Champions of Norath on this. If you want to do Champions of Norath, you basically need an Odin 2 at minimum, or some Windows or Linux-based device like a Steam Deck or one of the many Windows handhelds out there, one of the more powerful ones, and you can run Champions of Norath, but not here. And I suspect really high spec games will probably have a little trouble on this. Well, we'll find out. But if there's any game requests you have to check out here on the Anbernic RG556, then just leave me some comments, and if I have them available, I'll be happy to try them out. So far, I'm really enjoying this handheld. It feels good in the hands, the screen looks really nice, and it could stand to be a little bit more powerful, but for the price, I mean, you can get this thing for less than $175 now. And for the price, it's pretty hard to beat. Thank you for watching this video. It's been a while. And see you next time.